Hi, I'm Norm Plumstead, the President and CEO of Honor Bank, and welcome to part 2 in my series on demystifying banking. Today we're going to delve into the UBPR, or Uniform Bank Performance Report. And I'm sharing my screen for today's video because it'll make it easier when it comes time later for me to show you around the report itself. It was developed by what's known as the Federal Financial Examinations Council. That is a mouthful, and like most other government agencies, they like using acronyms, hence they're referred to as the FFIEC. So the FFIEC developed the UBPR as an analysis tool for evaluating the financial condition and operations of individual banks in the U.S. Banks upload their data quarterly, which makes it a dynamic tool reflecting the evolving state of a bank's performance in crucial areas like earnings, asset quality, liquidity, and capital adequacy. And I'm going to show you each of those 4 areas here in a little bit and what to look for. So who uses this tool? As it turns out, there are quite a few groups. First, bank examiners and regulators use it to monitor a bank's financial condition and identify any changes or trends. Bank management turn to the UBPR to compare our bank's data with peer banks and identify our own trends or what's going on in the industry. For analysts and researchers, the UBPR is a goldmine of data that allows them to conduct comprehensive analysis and comparisons between banks. Bank investors and shareholders can leverage the insights within the report to make better informed decisions about their investments. And finally, the general public can access the UBPR to get a better understanding of a bank's financial condition and make it easier to compare one bank to another. So let's dig into the report and I'll show you around. So in the post itself, there's going to be a link to this landing page. Once you get here, click on UBPR reports, and then in the drop down, select UBPR, type in your bank's name, click search banks, and in the dialog box that comes up, select your bank's name, click generate report, and you'll come to this landing page. In addition to this tree on the left, it's going to tell you some very basic information like where they're headquartered, who their federal regulator is, when they were established, and what their peer group looks like. So for instance, for us, we're compared to banks between $300 million and $1 billion in size. There happens to be about almost 1,300 of those banks of that size in our peer group. Okay, so once you're here, I'm going to direct you to the summary ratios page. And what you'll find is performance data broken down on a quarter-by-quarter basis. It's going to have the bank's ratios, the peer group's ratios, and then where the bank falls within that peer group. So, as I said before, I want to point out 4 metrics for you to look at when assessing a bank. And we're going to start with net income. So net income is measured in terms, it's measured relative to a bank's asset size. So for instance, if a bank has $100 million in assets and their net income was $1 million, then their net income, or their ROA, return on assets, would be 1.0. And what you're going to want to look for when checking out a bank is consistency over time. No large peaks in values. Certainly banks want to avoid any losing quarters, but I would say consistency in how they rank compared to similar banks within their peer group is important to look for. By the way, you can also click into any one of these items, and it's going to show you a definition and narrative about that, how that ratio is calculated. Also, there's a 5-quarter trend line here that is graphically represented, and you can click into that and plot that over a longer period as well. So that's net income. That's the first thing to look for. The second thing to look for is asset quality, and that is found in this section. Two areas of asset quality to pay attention to. The first is delinquency, and that's measured loan delinquency that's 30 to 89 days past due. With these numbers, we want them to be as low as possible. And again, you're just going to want to compare them to the peer group to make sure that how your bank is falling is within line of its peers. So this is one, delinquency ratio. You want that to be as low as possible. Second, non-performing loans. Non-performing loans are loans that get 90 days past due or fall into non-accrual status. Again, the lower the better. Next, third thing to look at is liquidity. And here there's a ratio called the non-core funding dependency ratio. And what this measures is a bank's reliance on non-core funding. So maybe it's borrowings, for example. This is another ratio that ideally you'd want to see as low as possible. And in this case, also a negative number is good to see. Once again, compare it to peers. So what you don't want to see is an outlier in terms of this ratio. The higher the number, the more dependent that bank is on short-term, more volatile funding. And finally, capital and capital adequacy. So one capital ratio to pay attention to is Tier 1 leverage ratio. In order for a bank to be considered well capitalized, this Tier 1 leverage ratio needs to be above 5%. So once again, compare it to its peers and compare it to how it's performed consistently over time. You don't want to see peaks or valleys when it comes to capital ratios. So that's it. Those are the four areas that I would pay attention to. Certainly there's a lot more contained in terms of ratios and raw data within this UBPR. Those are four, though, that you can key in on. If you've got any questions about any of those ratios or questions just generally speaking about the UBPR or assessing a bank's performance, please post those in the comments below, or feel free to reach out to me on my cell phone. You can give me a call or send me a text at 231-709-1730. Thanks very much, and we'll see you back here next week. Thanks.